3 shovels, 2 pickaxes, and a crowbar sat behind a brick wall for 15 years. They were found by accident. A maintenance worker named Tom Harper came to Oak Hollow Cemetery to inspect the Vaughn family mausoleum, an old, wealthy name that had vanished from town as quietly as it arrived. Tom tapped the back wall inside the mausoleum. The sound was dull. Hollow. Way too hollow for solid brick. He called the groundskeeper. Then someone called the police. And within an hour, a crime scene tent went up in the morning fog, patrol lights flashed through wet trees, and people started whispering like the dead might complain about the noise. Before we go further, type your city in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you're listening from. And subscribe, because what you're about to hear is the kind of truth that makes urban legends look polite. Detective Sarah Collins got the call at 6:12 a.m. The dispatcher sounded oddly shaken. And almost relieved. "Sarah. You need to get here. Oak Hollow Cemetery. We found something tied to the 1990 case. The missing gravediggers?" Sarah said. She remembered. That case was taught at the academy as a perfect failure. 3 men disappeared in one night. No struggle. No bodies. And along with them, the cemetery safe was emptied, $50,000. In a small town, that kind of money doesn't just change lives. It ruins them. Oak Hollow greeted Sarah with damp fog and the smell of wet leaves. People near the gate spoke in half-voices, like raising your volume on a cemetery was an invitation for something to answer back. At the Vaughn Mausoleum, a small crowd had gathered. Behind a section of newer brickwork, tucked into a hidden cavity, were the tools. Wrapped in old canvas. On the fabric, a faded stamp from the local funeral service still clung to the threads like a fingerprint. Sarah crouched and studied each piece. On the handle of one shovel, someone had scratched a date with a nail, October 23, 1990. On the pickaxe, neat letters were carved, MZ. Like it wasn't just a tool. Like it was a charm. One shovel had a chipped edge. The second, smaller, had a handle wrapped in black electrical tape. And the crowbar. Heavy. Rusted. But beneath the rust, a dark stain bled through. Too dark. "I know these," a hoarse voice said. A man pushed through the crowd. Victor Klein. Former cemetery manager. Early 60s. Big frame. A face shaped by years of waking up from the same nightmare. He stared at the tools and choked, like the air turned to ash in his throat. "This is Andrew Parker's shovel," he said. "See the chip? He hit a stone with it a week before they vanished. And that pickaxe, Mike Zane carved those initials himself. He was proud of it. Said it was his luck. He'd never leave it behind." Sarah looked up. "You ran this place back then?" "I did." Klein swallowed. "Until that night." He exhaled, shaky. 3 of my workers disappeared. Andrew Parker, 35. Foreman. Best I ever had. Mike Zane, 28. The funny one. And Danny Hill, 42. Quiet, but he worked like 2 men. And the same night, Sarah said calmly, the money vanished from the safe. Klein flinched. "Yes. And the cops nearly ate me alive. They thought I did it. Over the missing cash." Sarah touched the date scratched into the wood. "Tell me about that night. Start at the beginning." Klein spoke like he wasn't telling a story. Like he was reliving it. "I put them on the night shift. Rush job. 3 graves needed by morning. We were behind schedule. I assigned them overnight. And I still think, if I hadn't, they'd be alive." "Who saw them last?" "The gate guard," Klein said. "Pete Mallory. He was in the booth at the entrance." Sarah wrote the name down and stood. That's when a woman's voice cut in. "This is my family's mausoleum. Why did you open it without my permission?" Elena Vaughn stood near the doorway. Tall. Elegant. Black coat. Beautiful even with time on her face. But her eyes had that jittery edge, the look of someone who came not to learn the truth, but to keep it buried. Sarah faced her. Exigent circumstances. Evidence connected to an old case was discovered here. Elena's gaze locked on the crowbar. Her skin drained of color by the second. You were in town in 1990? Sarah asked. I was, Elena said quickly. A few days before. Paperwork. A reburial issue for a great-grandfather. I changed my mind and left. I still have my travel receipts. She spoke fast. Too fast. A forensic tech leaned in and murmured to Sarah. We found dried clay on the pickaxe. Red tinted. That soil matches the area near the old chapel in the north section. It's a rare mix. Iron heavy. Sarah's eyes went back to Elena. Elena was gripping her bag, fingers tight, not taking her eyes off that dark stain. That's impossible, she whispered. Sarah's voice stayed level. What's impossible? Elena jerked, like she'd said too much. I want a lawyer, she said. Now. You're not a suspect, Sarah replied. Not yet. Later that day, Pete Mallory came to the station. Short man. Trembling hands. The stale scent of alcohol hanging around him. But his eyes were too sharp for just a drunk gate guard. He placed an old photograph on the table. That's us, he said. A week before they disappeared. 4 men stood by the old chapel. Andrew, tall, confident smile. Mike, stocky, mischievous eyes. Danny, thin, almost blending into the background. And Mallory, clean, sober-looking, like a different person. Tell me about that night, Sarah said. Around 9, Mallory began. Andrew stopped by my booth. He was upbeat. Eyes bright. He said, Pete, we're heading out to dig. We'll finish by morning, then we'll finally get a weekend. I joked, just don't bury each other. He laughed. Said, not a chance. We've got big plans. Mallory paused. That was the last thing I heard from him. Did you notice anything strange in the days before? Sarah asked. They were whispering, he said. Excited. On edge. Andrew said something like, we're about to get rich. I didn't think much of it. But that night, cars came in. One around 11. Another close to midnight. I didn't go out. I was scared. I had this bad feeling. Sarah hated that phrase. Bad feeling always shows up when someone knew more than they're admitting, and wants the fear to look like innocence. In the cemetery records, Sarah found paperwork that didn't add up. A payment receipt under the Vaughn name, dated after the disappearance, October 24, 1990. And next to it, county morgue employment logs. Elena Vaughn, morgue employee, October 1990. On the second interview, Elena cracked. Yes, she said. I worked at the morgue. Yes, I knew Andrew. We were together. Sarah didn't blink. Go on. He promised he'd leave his wife, Elena said. He said we'd start over. And then I saw him with someone else. Near the chapel. Kissing. She started to cry. I drove over on the 23rd to confront him. I waited. He showed up late. Told me he was busy. I lost it. I grabbed his shovel and hit his shoulder. He fell, but he got up. He called me crazy and walked away. He walked away alive. Sarah asked. Yes, Elena snapped. Alive. Where were you after that? At home, Elena said. Crying all night. My neighbor can confirm. And then Mallory quietly added something that changed the room. I saw her car, he said. Around 11. Leaving the chapel area. Fast. Like she was running. Elena's head snapped up, like she'd grabbed a life raft. Exactly, she said. I left. I didn't kill him. But a different piece surfaced. Victor Klein had withdrawn $50,000 the day before the disappearance, marked for stone and marble purchases. No invoices. No vendor. No delivery. Sarah stared at Klein across the interview table. Where is the money? The supplier backed out, Klein said too quickly. His eyes didn't sit still. I kept it in the safe. In the morning the safe was pried open. Did you have debts? Sarah asked. Klein's forehead dampened. Small ones. To a local businessman. Mickey Hayes. 30,000. Due by the end of October. In a small town, businessman often means the man who will bury you and send flowers to your family. An elderly neighbor later remembered that night. Victor drove out around midnight, she said. Going to check the grounds, he told me. And I saw two men hauling something heavy toward the chapel. Like sacks. Or, not sacks. Then Sarah found one more puzzle piece. In Andrew Parker's belongings, there was a note, if anything happens, look in the chapel. That's where it is. Ground-penetrating radar found metal about 5 feet down. They began to dig. First came a gold icon cover. Then another. Then crosses and old church pieces. It was a cache. A treasure. Sarah stood over the pit and felt the air shift, because treasure isn't just money. It's motive. It's the spark that turns ordinary people into animals. A specialist whistled under his breath. One of these alone is worth hundreds of thousands, he said. Maybe more. Klein swallowed hard. So they found it and ran, he muttered. Or someone learned about it, Mallory said softly, and killed them. Elena stared at the pit. Andrew said he'd have big money soon, she whispered. He promised we'd leave. I thought he was dreaming. Sarah looked at all three of them and said what nobody wanted to hear. After they vanished, your lives improved. Klein paid off debt and bought a cabin. Elena moved and rented a downtown place. Mallory quit and opened a workshop. They all started talking at once. A sale. An inheritance. Side jobs. Lucky breaks. Anything. Anything except the night of October 23rd. Sarah let the noise run until it burned itself out. Then she said, calmly, you lie differently. But you lie the same. During a second search of Elena's belongings, they found an old key. Ornate. Engraved. Family heirloom, Elena said immediately. From an old house. A locksmith examined it and shook his head. That's a cemetery lock key, he said. Old style. For a mausoleum. Mallory looked at the key, and his face went pale. I've seen one like that, he said. Andrew showed me. Said he found an interesting place. The Morrison Mausoleum. It's near the chapel. They went there. An abandoned stone mausoleum swallowed by ivy. The key turned. Inside, there were fresh footprints on a dusty floor. In the corner, a strip of canvas, matching the material the tools were wrapped in. On the wall, scratches. Like someone counting days. 15 groups of 7. 105 days. Someone had been kept here. Or had hidden here. Elena whispered, I've never been here. Sarah didn't look away. But the key was on you. Forensics confirmed DNA on the tools. They were the missing men's tools. And those tools had been used to strike. Blunt force trauma. Hard enough that accident wasn't even an insult to the truth. Elena was arrested. On paper, it looked clean. Jealousy. Lies. Contradicting dates. Her job at the morgue. The key. As they let her out, she screamed, this is wrong. Andrew was alive when I left. Victor Klein breathed out, and the relief on his face was ugly. Finally, he said. I knew it was her. Mallory said nothing. He stared at the floor like it could tell him how to live with himself. Sarah didn't sleep that night. She reread every statement, every date, every line. It was too perfect. Too convenient. And the next morning, something happened that never shows up in training manuals. A man walked into the station. Thin. Gray-haired. Haunted eyes. Hands trembling like he'd been holding a secret for too long. "I have to tell the truth," he said quietly. I'm Danny Hill." A desk officer nearly dropped his coffee. Sarah stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "You're alive?" "Yes," Danny said. "I hid for 15 years. Lived in Canada. Worked construction. But I saw the news about Elena. And I knew, if I stay silent, an innocent woman goes to prison." Sarah sat him down, switched on the recorder, and kept her voice steady. "Start from the beginning. Everything." Danny clenched his fists. "A week before that night," he said, "we found the cache. We were digging near the chapel and I fell through into a space under the floor. Gold covers, crosses, church pieces. We realized it was old parish property. In the 1930s, when the church got shut down over debt, the priest hid the valuables and never came back." Sarah listened without interrupting. "Andrew said we'd split it and leave," Danny continued. "Each of us had a reason. Andrew, his family was falling apart and he wanted a new start. Mike wanted to open a business. My wife was sick. I needed money for treatment." "Did Klein know?" Sarah asked. "We thought he didn't," Danny said. "But he was watching us. Suspecting." Danny took a breath, then sped up, like the words were trying to escape his mouth. "On the night of the 23rd, we came back to retrieve it. Andrew was late. He said Elena made a scene and hit him with a shovel. We started moving the pieces and stacking them near the altar." "And then?" Sarah asked. "Then Klein walked in." Sarah's spine tightened. "Alone?" "No," Danny said. "Pete Mallory was with him." Sarah's eyes drifted toward the hallway, where Mallory was waiting, unaware the floor beneath him was about to collapse. Danny continued. "Klein had a gun. Not a big one, but enough. He said, 'This belongs to the cemetery. Hand it over.' Andrew refused. Called Klein a thief. Said he'd report him for shady deals with burial plots." Sarah remembered the files. Double-sold grave sites. Missing paperwork. It clicked into place like a lock. "Klein hit Andrew with the gun," Danny said. "Andrew went down. Mike rushed in. Klein fired. Mike dropped. Blood everywhere." Danny's breath shook. "And Mallory stepped to Andrew. Andrew was alive. Stunned, but alive. And Pete hit him with the crowbar. Hard." Silence filled the room so completely Sarah could hear the old air unit rattle in the vent. "Where did the bodies go?" Sarah asked. "Under the chapel floor," Danny said. "They dug until around 3. Then Pete shoved cash at me and said, 'Disappear. Forever.' I took a bus at 5 and crossed into Canada. I lived under a different name." Sarah stepped into the hallway. Mallory lifted his head. His face was gray. His eyes empty. "Is it true?" Sarah asked. Mallory stared at her for a long moment, then rasped, "Not all of it." Sarah didn't blink. "Then tell me your version." Mallory straightened, like he'd decided dying upright was better than living on his knees. "Danny didn't see the start," he said. "I came earlier. I saw Klein threatening them. I tried to talk him down. I said, 'Take a piece. Leave them something.' He wanted everything. He hit Andrew. He shot Mike." Mallory swallowed. "I realized he'd kill all of us. So I hit Klein from behind with the crowbar. He went down. Unconscious." Sarah's eyes narrowed. You knocked Klein out. Yes, Mallory said. But Andrew was still alive. He was trying to get up. Mallory shut his eyes. And I thought, if he lives, he tells everything. Klein goes to prison. And me too. For being there. For knowing. For not stopping it. He opened his eyes again. So I hit Andrew again. I told myself it was mercy. But it was survival. And Mike? Sarah asked. He bled out, Mallory said. I tried. I tried to stop it. It was too late. And Klein? Sarah asked. Mallory's voice dropped. He woke up hours later. He didn't remember. I told him I came to check on the guys and found them dead. I told him it was probably Hayes's people, because of the money. He believed it. His memory never came back. They brought Klein in for a confrontation. He grabbed his head like it was splitting. I don't remember, he said over and over. I swear I don't remember. Later, doctors confirmed it. Retrograde amnesia from a head injury. He truly didn't remember. But that didn't erase the fact that he showed up with a gun and tried to take the treasure. Elena was released the same day. She dropped to her knees in front of Danny and whispered, "Thank you. If you hadn't." Danny didn't smile. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm a coward. I should have stopped it." The trial came 3 months later. Mallory confessed in full. "I killed a man who trusted me," he said in court. "Andrew was like a son to me. And I hit him with a crowbar to save my own skin." Klein repeated one sentence like a broken record. "I don't remember." The verdict was harsh. Klein was sentenced to 15 years. Mallory received 12 years for murder and concealment. Danny was cleared. He'd lost 15 years to hiding, but he came back to tell the truth, and in doing so, he saved an innocent woman. Elena arranged Andrew's funeral. His remains were recovered from beneath the chapel floor, where they'd been shoved into the earth like trash in the middle of panic. She left white roses on his grave and a small note, "Forgive me for that blow. Forgive me for not saving you. I loved you." Danny returned to Canada. Before he left, he told Sarah, "For 15 years, I ran from the truth. Now, I'm free. And honestly, freedom can feel like a punishment too." Mallory died in prison 6 months later. Heart failure. A guard later said Mallory's final words were, "Boys, forgive an old fool." Klein served his time. The memory never returned. Sometimes he woke from nightmares with blood on his hands, screams in his ears, shadows in his mind. But no faces. Only darkness. Sarah closed the case. The report said, "Crime solved. Responsible parties prosecuted." The old chapel was eventually demolished. A playground was built in its place. Kids laughed. Ran through the grass. Played under the sun. Not knowing what once happened beneath their feet. 3 gravediggers searched for a better life. They found death. One killer lost his memory. The other lost his soul. The only man who survived lost 15 years. And only the truth, discovered after 15 years behind a brick wall, finally freed the innocent and named the guilty. Justice happened. But there's always one question left after stories like this. What did it cost?